Hello, everyone, and welcome to Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet that is rated adults only. Joining me today, the Norman Reedus to my Hideo Kojima, Brandon.
If we're adults only, we're not going to be sold in stores, and nobody's going to be able to buy us.
But, you know, we can say the F word, so it's fine.
Oh, fuck yeah.
The Jeff Keighley to my Hideo Kojima, Muzamil.
I'm not first, what the fuck? This is just like Jeff being betrayed like Kojima. This is no longer his best friend.
I planned
it's really
exactly
sad.
this. The Guillermo del Toro to my Hideo Kojima, Saphir.
Hey, I made the Pacific Rim.
You did
It's
it.
me.
It's you. And the Mads Mikkelsen to my Hideo Kojima, Noah.
I do not know who that is.
He's the guy from Hannibal.
He did-
He's good. He's the
He
guy
doesn't understand the Hideo Kojima script.
in the trailer. He's the that goes shh. He puts his fingers to his lips to indicate you need to be very quiet.
Who does understand this?
Don't worry about it.
I silence people. All right.
Yes, you're the silence.
I
from-
understand the script. I'm Norman Reedus. I understand it.
You get it. You think I'm a creative genius.
Yes.
Now, how's everyone doing this week?
Merry Switchmas!
Merry Switchmas, everybody.
Merry Switchmas.
When this goes up, it will be 2 days past Merry Switchmas, but the spirit lingers on. Still feel it inside.
I wish it was this warm last year when I had to stand outside for the Switch, because holy shit was it cold.
See, I didn't have to. Okay. So I will just get into it. I wanted to do the news stuff first, but I think it's the 1 year anniversary of the Switch, and I want to rewind your mind. Not knowing what we know now, not knowing what we know about Zelda and Mario and all the other games. Go back to March 3rd, 2017. What were you doing the day of the Switch coming out?
Okay, well, see, I was a little ridiculous, okay? Alright, standing out for a midnight launch, whatever, that's normal, right? People do that, right? However, I attended a midnight launch just to pick up Zelda. I couldn't pick up my Switch till the next day anyway, but for some reason, I thought, I'm gonna go at midnight to pick up my copy of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, even though I cannot play this game yet until the next day when I pick up my Switch. So I did that. I got the big old collector's edition thing. I forgot what they called it, but it came with a Sword of the Master Sword, a statue of the Master Sword that I'm staring at right now. It was beautiful. But yeah, I didn't pick up my Switch till the next day, but as soon as I got it, oh, wonderful. I picked it up at 10 a.m. the next day, but yeah, that was my launch day.
So this is my really fast. I mean, I don't know if there's any other interesting stories, but I just want to say, it was the first ever time I went out for midnight launch for a thing, and I waited in line, and there was tell me if this is wrong. There were people, there's the classic, the people sitting in the chairs waiting outside.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Classic.
that was us at one point, yeah.
I went inside the store, and there were people doing the same thing, but just inside, by the cash register.
What?
Ow.
They wouldn't let us in the store.
Yeah, I thought it's the policy, because I was just there to get my pre-receipt, and I was like, hey, what's their thing? And the girl was like, they've been here since 8. We don't know if we want to kick them out or not, but they've just been by the register all day.
Wow.
I don't think you can do
That's
that.
dedication.
But then I look later,
Dedication.
because they have the pre-receipt things at GameStop, right? Where you can just go pay beforehand, then come back at 12, and just and you have your receipt is your number in line.
Yeah.
So I looked, and I was like, I'm number 7, cool. And so I came back, and I looked, and I saw it'll probably be the people in front of me. But I looked, they were number 40. They never got their pre-receipt, so they were there from 8 a.m. And they just didn't get their ticket, and so they were way behind me, who showed up at 11:15 and was like, hey, can I get my pre-receipt? And then I went to eat, and I came back, and I was like, that's super good. But heartwarming.
That's
Just
great.
one minor thing, one heartwarming story. There was a guy behind me who, he looked kind of crazy. I was like, is this guy nuts? But I started talking to him, and he had a cane with him, and he was an older guy, and I was like, and he goes, yeah. I was like, are you excited for Zelda? And he was like, yeah, man. When I used to be in the military, and I got injured while I was serving, and while I was getting my physical therapy on my legs done, that they got, one of my buddies bought me a Nintendo Entertainment System, and he got me Zelda. And so while I was rehabbing, I would play Zelda, and that was how I was able to explore and go on an adventure while I was bedbound, was through Zelda.
Shit.
And so ever since, he said that he bought every Nintendo console at launch and bought 2 copies of Zelda, one he would play and one he would just have boxed. So he has all of them just in a
super
cabinet.
And that man,
oh,
his
shit.
name was
Hideo
Albert
Kojima.
Einstein.
But yeah, but I thought so. I walked home and I was like, man, I feel good about video games. I expected to just be cold and sad, but that was actually a very
Your
an
heart was
enjoyable
warmed.
experience.
Your heart grew 3 sizes that day.
That's very nice.
But
And
enough
then you
of
got the
that.
Switch, it's like, fuck everyone else. This is mine.
Yeah, and then I gave everyone the bird as I left. But before we feel good, got some touchy feely stuff. Now, boys, we got to get to business. Time for
business.
It's business time. So, for the news this week, we're gonna lead off with the big one. The last 4 of these 5 podcasts that have happened before this, we talked about loot boxes in some format, right?
Right.
We now have an official statement from the Entertainment Software Rating Board, the ESRB, on what they are going to do to help address the microtransaction situation.
Oh,
in
goody,
video
goody. Give me the
games.
good stuff.
Oh, I'm going to give you... Get ready. Here's the transcript for their press release. Feel free to interject with your thoughts as we go. Just if something is dumb. You may have noticed that we've been a little quiet on the topic of in-game purchases and loot boxes. But we've been listening. In fact, we've absorbed every tweet, email, Facebook post, and singing telegram sent our way. And we've been working to develop a sensible approach to let gamers and parents know when a game offers the option to purchase additional content. Starting soon, ESRB will be assembling and assigning a brand new label to physical games in-game purchases. This label, or as we call it, interactive element, What? Will appear on boxes and wherever those games can be downloaded. For all games that have the ability to purchase...
Can
Sorry.
I just interrupt and just say this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life? What?
Get ready.
It gets dumber.
Yeah.
Oh, god damn it.
Yeah. To purchase digital goods or premiums with real world currency. This includes features like bonus levels, skins, surprise items, such as item packs, loot boxes, mystery awards, music, virtual coins, and any other form of in-game currency, subscriptions, seasonal passes, upgrades for the option to disable ads, and more. We were launching the website parentaltools.org to help raise awareness for the helpful tools that parents can manage the amount of time or money those crafty kids can spend playing games.
They did not use crafty kids, did they?
They did. This is the first step of many. We'll continue to discuss how to further enhance our rating system with publishers, developers, gamers, and especially parents, and we'll continue to make adjustments as the need arises. Thank you for your patience on this, and for your love of games that we rate.
So here's the issue, right?
Yeah,
Is that-
I know it. I already know it.
There's
I know
7
the issue.
issues with this, to be honest.
Go
Stop.
on, one
Well-
person at a time.
Okay, so a game like Breath of the Wild, which has a harmless season pass, you get add-on content later, right? And then you have Star Wars Battlefront 2 with the scummiest loot boxes known to man, and to the point where it's like gambling, right? Right? You're feeding off of people's addictions, blah blah blah. Those two are now look the same on a retail shelf because they both have add-on content included or whatever the label is, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's
That's why-
completely hiding the actual issue here. This is a bullshit step that actually does nothing.
It does actually nothing.
But ESA gets to pat themselves on the back. Look at us, we're doing something
every
about loot
single fucking
boxes.
game.
Yeah, that's every
every game is
game.
gonna have
That's every
Zelda
freaking
would
video
have
game.
in-game purchases on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fusing DLC with loot boxes. That's not working. That's not.
How does that tell a parent if this is predatory or not? It tells you
doesn't.
nothing. It tells you literally nothing.
And every single game is going to have that on it.
Then again, does it really matter? Because parents don't really go by the ratings anyway.
I
so-
mean, no. I think it's important to have something.
No,
though.
parents notice what is M and what is teen. I think my parents were like, don't play, is this game's teen, or
So
this game's
here's the
mature,
thing,
you're 13.
This came in levels, Noah. So there was first level where it's like, oh, they just put in a label. And there's some parents that don't really care about labels, and there are some kids that go out the
But
way
that
to
would
just
help
kinda,
some, right?
Sneakily try and
yeah.
get that shit.
It probably will
It
help a
helps
few,
somewhat. But it's kind of still ineffectual, but it still helps. It's still informative. This one went above and beyond that shit into nothing.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it's literally nothing because either don't have them at all or have them on every single game is basically what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, think of games that don't have bonus levels, skins, surprise items such as item packs, loot boxes, mystery awards, music, virtual coins, and other forms of in-game currency, subscriptions, season passes. Like, that's every game. That's literally every game.
Every single modern game is gonna have that.
And like,
Thank you, ESRB, for listening to all our tweets, our singing telegrams, and
Our
whatever
singing
the fuck
telegrams.
else.
Singing telegrams that we all sent to them. Why did they put that in there? They're trying to be funny. That's the stupidest shit,
like,
man.
and the thing is too, I'm frustrated. Like, the last thing about the crafty kids. One, you sound like a Scooby-Doo villain. I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you crafty kids.
Meddling kids.
Meddling kids.
Yeah, I know, but we gotta fix it.
That's what it sounds like.
Yes, like it's literally like it's not EA's fault that we didn't tell you the microtransactions were in Battlefront 2. Is that these crafty kids can't be trusted? Like, look at us, we're no problem for us. Like, I mean, it's a reminder that like the ESRB and the ESA were made by the video game industry to help protect themselves during the 90s when there was anger at like violent video games, right? Which is somehow still became a topic again. Incredible. But like at the end, they are an organization that is designed to protect video games, right? Which is problematic, right? It can be problematic, and this is a situation where like I think they literally did this because no publishers are pushing back on this, because that means that it will just become because every single box will have it, it will not matter, right? It will just be insignificant. It will be entirely just to cover yourself legally.
At this point, just either don't have it or don't have it at all, because it's going to be on every single box. So what's the point?
All you're doing is ruining people like Brandon's physical collection with that ugly banner. I don't know what it'll look like, but no, I don't know what it'll look like, but I'm just saying, like,
It's just on the AS.
no, it'll just be a little label, but like honestly, like, it's not hard, right? Like, any sort of microtransaction, right? Any sort of random element, anything like that, right? Where it's like you can buy multiple of the same thing. I think that's the real main concern here, right? Is anytime you could buy multiple things of the same, like any currency, that's a problem that needs to be on the box. That, hey, you can spend $10,000 in this game. There's no limits to the amount you can spend here, you know? And
there's like no verification, there's no nothing, it's just buy. And there's like it's all these stories that you hear about. It's like kids continuing to buy lots of shit on through microtransaction without even realizing that there's supposed to be a limit to how much you buy.
And you have to love that they're pushing the blame on the kids too, right? It's not the people who are making it so the kids can do it.
Kids.
It's just no.
Kids.
Yeah. Like it's not EA's fault for having these scummy microtransactions that target kids and like get them to do it. No, it's the kids' fault. They're just looking at the kids. Yeah, no. Thanks, ESA, for nothing.
Those damn kids.
Those
little bastards.
Now, we've had a couple of representatives all make statements about this who have brought up the issues. One representative, Lee, from Hawaii, said, "It's a missed opportunity, and perhaps even a step backwards for the ESRB and the ESA. They could have taken meaningful and proactive steps, but this seems to be doubling down on an offense and obscuring of loot boxes and simulated gambling mechanics." So if their idea was like, we'll prevent government intervention with this, we'll keep ourselves in check, didn't appear to work. You just appeared to make us all look dumb and to add worthless labels onto your boxes, making the box arts even worse. So good job.
See, because my concern was like regulators and like congressmen, etc., seeing this and like, oh, okay, the ESA listened, they're regulating themselves. But I'm glad people are like, no, we see right through your bullshit. Like,
well, I mean, with a statement like this, how can you not? Like, even if you don't know what video games are, the tone here is so annoying that like it just doesn't. It's incredible.
Obnoxious.
I have to love how they're patting. You can see them just patting themselves on the back, like, look, good job, us. We did it. We fixed it.
We solved it. We solved it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so hopefully someone else will do something because this is not the answer.
Yeah, ESA can't regulate itself. We need intervention. Like that's it is what
Which
it
is
is.
bad. I mean, which is like because that opens us up to more issues. Like it would
Yeah,
be nice
you don't
if
want
ESA
to
could
you don't
solve this,
want
but
it
they
to
can't.
get to that step, but at this point you have to. There's no choice at this point because I don't see them.
I'll step in. Send me there. I'll do it.
Brandon, he'll bust down the door. He'll change things up.
Yeah.
But speaking of just good job, you nailed it, everyone. Sega uploaded a demo for Yakuza 6 on the PSN store on
Great
Tuesday.
demo. A lot of content. So much
lot
content.
of content in this demo. In fact, so much content that the demo goes all the way to the end credits of the game because they just put the full game up for free for like 7 hours. Don't know how you do that. I can tell you why they probably did that, but like, woof, what a goof. I right now have Yakuza 6 7 weeks early on my PS4. And I'm
lucky.
Well, I mean, I'm still gonna buy this game because Yakuza is a series that like still has an uncertain future in the West, and I'm scared for it. But like, I imagine there are people out there that didn't and they're just losing sales on this.
Yeah, dumb. We played it early on a Twitch stream.
We did. We played it on a Twitch stream. We've streamed.
Is it
basically
archived?
It is archived. If you go to twitch.tv/jumpupsupercast, every stream that we've streamed just about every day last week. So there's content there for you to enjoy. But I want to talk about this though because the reason why they did this demo, and the reason why there was this mess up is that Sega did not plan to put out this demo. The March release date for Yakuza was clearly not for any like gameplay improvements because the game's out. They uploaded the finished product. They said it was for business reasons at the time. And what I took that to be is that they felt like they were not advertising the game enough and they're going to give it more of a marketing push. Because I think that they saw a future for Yakuza in the West because of Yakuza 0 being so big. And that got me thinking that last year, and up to this point, has been an incredible year for a lot of Japanese games. Persona 5, Nier Automata, Monster Hunter World just came out, Yakuza 0 coming out last year. These are all games that have been around for over 10 years. Excluding Nier, have had multiple entries in their series. But they've never truly broken through in the West until now, until this moment. And I want to ask you all, what do you think it is that, because we can now say when you have 5 games that have all done this, it's starting to become a trend. What do you think about specifically 2017 and now 2018 allows for these games to break through in a way that they have never before in the industry?
I mean, never is, I think, wrong, right? Because in the PS1, PS2 era, these games did flourish.
Okay, that's kind of like for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
but
like,
that's the thing. Here's the difference, right? Is Japan got their head out of their ass and realized we're gonna make games that can only be made in Japan, right? Last generation, Capcom, Square Enix, everyone just chasing the West, right? They want to make these games that appeal to Western sensibilities, and a lot of them failed last gen. And now they're finally starting to go back to their roots, finally doing what they do best.
I would say of those games, Nier was always incredibly Japanese. Yakuza was always incredibly Japanese.
Okay, sure.
Persona was always incredibly Japanese. Monster Hunter was always incredibly Japanese. These are all series that did not chase the Western dragon.
So this is I want to drop my 2 cents on this, but I feel as though like these types of games had offered something quite unique that scooped up a certain cult like following in relation to this. Like a lot of the excitement and a lot of the hype for these games came from the fans of the previous games beforehand. Like they're the guys that like kind of like push for this game to be to get that mainstream appeal or to get that mainstream interest in there. Because like a lot of these fans, like whenever you like, I haven't played Nier, but I heard about Nier. I heard a lot of people who actually played Nier and like hype that shit up. With Xenoblade, I was one of those guys that were hyping up Xenoblade. I was one of those guys that's like, I can't reveal who the 7th character is because that shit's a secret and that sort of thing. I feel as though the same was could be said about Persona 4. Oh, sorry, not Persona 4, Persona 5.
Yeah, it's like
As well
Persona
as,
4 was, and also it's
Persona
just the
4
power of
also
social
was a
media
step
and
on it.
Twitch, right? It's like
I mean, I
like,
think you're both right. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Moose.
yeah, no, that's all I had to say. Yeah,
But like I
I
think it is the mix of an insanely cult like fan base, right? And I don't want to mean cult like in like the bad way, but just like hyper dedicated, hyper engaged, follows every piece of news with the streamer culture, right? And I think especially Twitch allows for Yakuza is an extremely gifable game. Persona is a gifable game. A lot of these games can be conveyed in such a small time frame that allows it to spread more easily because there are people that are evangelizing it, which make up a small base that are crying out for people to play these games. Then a big streamer picks it up and it goes from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, so what you're basically trying to say is that you think that the hardcore crowds that loved these games, their hype and excitement over these games has been spilling out in
There's
catching
now a
other
platform for their excitement to spread, right?
Yeah, and I would also say, sorry for interrupting. I would also say it's like it wasn't like the devs have done their part as well in relation to this. They've tried their best in regards to making it feel more accessible to newcomers as much as they possibly could as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Nier Automata, right? Like, it's the first game in the series that has gameplay that doesn't want to make you shoot yourself. You know, like, exaggerating, but, you know.
There's only one game before it.
Yeah,
No,
that
but like
was
the
a little
Drakengard. No, I mean,
That's
like,
a
Drakengard
stupid
game.
comparison.
no, but like the Drakengard games it's all part of the same. None of those games, Yoko Taro's games have never caught on, and they all play like garbage.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah, I would say that, like, even for example, Monster Hunter we now see the NPDs, was the #1 game for January. It was Capcom's fastest selling game, and that was the game that was, their whole thing was, like, we're going to make it easier to approach without dumbing it down.
Yeah, and it
And
paid
they did
off,
an
right?
excellent
Like,
job on it.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter is so accessible now, and it's paid off in spades. People tried that beta and they're like, oh, I immediately fall in love, right? Or maybe not necessarily possible before with all the weird quirks that they had kept along the last how many ever years, right? Like,
And I can see how Sega thought, well, do this with the Yakuza demo? And it clearly didn't work. But like, I think that the accessibility to see these games is also super important, right? That a lot of these games do have an inherent charm or neatness to them, where you're like, I want to show you my armor in Monster Hunter. I want to show you just the menus in Persona, right? I want to show you the songs from Nier. And like with YouTube, with Twitch, with social media being the way it is, you can now actually do that without having to call someone over to your house and show them the game.
Yeah. Well, I think in part of this, I mean, we've had those things at our hands for years, right?
Sure.
For a long time.
Though, I mean,
those
the
can't
biggest
be the
they've
only
ever been
contributing
now.
factors. Well, yeah. I think part of it has to do with the West, maybe it's just me, but I think I've noticed this trend, is really embracing, like, anime. And
Japanese culture in general.
Japanese culture, and specifically, a lot of these games have the anime.
Just because
aesthetic.
Michael B. Jordan made one tweet.
No.
Michael B. Jordan is right in the new golden age of
But,
anime.
like, anime the cons are bigger than ever. If you look at social media, cosplayers and stuff are just huge now. I mean, they've been huge, but it's just growing and growing, and I think that attributes to some of it too. And like, it's almost to the point where liking anime is cool, which is fucking weird, so weird to me, because I used to get people would be like, "Oh, you like that stupid anime shit?" for the longest time, but it's almost to the point where it's like, it's cool now. And
And also I think a benefit that I didn't mention but I think should be noted is that like all these games have above an 85 on Metacritic. All these games are
Quality
just
games as well, yeah.
the games are actually
they're
good.
quality
Good.
games.
like
yeah.
it's a perfect storm where we've had just a string of really good games that are also being marketed well and are shareable, right? Like I think that you see games that are one or the other, but rarely a confluence, especially from coming from Japan, has been rare up to this point, and we now see sort of a perfect storm of it. And I think that part of that should be thrown in is that the Switch came around that same time, and Zelda was successful, and it was also got shared on media in the same way, right? Obviously, Zelda was still a huge franchise, but Breath of the Wild did the biggest will be the best-selling Zelda game probably sometime
Smashing
soon.
numbers.
Man, it's weird though, because like I mentally separate like Japanese games and Nintendo, even though
Nintendo?
Nintendo's Japanese as fuck. But like,
They're extremely.
I don't. You know what? I, for one, welcome our big-titted anime overlords.
oh my god.
Well, none of those games. I mean, near kind of, but like,
I mean, I think we're.
I don't want to have this
Xenoblade?
conversation. I'm cutting it off.
Xenoblade?
I'm cutting it off. Cutting it off. Xenoblade is good, but I don't want to talk about Pyra.
I'm just saying. I, for one, welcome our new overlords.
Well, that's good.
And this will be the last episode that Brandon's a part of.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I think there's a lot of people that agree with
I mean, obviously, and we don't want to yuck their yums, of course. But, I want to talk about, speaking of overlords, corporate overlords. Microsoft has done a thing that I want to give a little bit of credit for because I think it's neat. They have put out 4 new games for the Xbox One X enhanced 360 games.
I was just talking about this earlier this week, wasn't I?
Yeah, and they're sick. I mean, like in terms of they now have the 4 games. I don't have in front of me, but I know for sure there was the first Fable remake. There was The Witcher 2. There was the original Forza Horizon, and one other game which I forget. But there's like 11 games now that they have this where they run at 4K natively. All of the textures are up-res, just like natively whenever you play on a 1X and you do a backwards compatible game. And they're like, I mean, it's just quietly a low-key free thing.
It's like free remasters.
It's like free, like that's the thing, right?
You
Is that,
already
like,
own it, like you're good, and it's like, and it's crazy too, right? Is with Xbox One backwards compatibility. It's also if you have like the disc version too, right? Like you throw in your 360 disc, you throw in your original Xbox disc, it looks better than it ever did. That's crazy, you know?
It's
like
it is really
That is
cool, and
impressive.
I think it's important that like I think that we are all people here that are proponents of backwards compatibility, but I think that
1000%.
But I think that the fact that backwards compatibility has sort of fallen to the wayside in the era of patches, we now see the potential of those two things colliding, right? Of like, with a patch, you can just download firmware to your system that can make old games run better, right? That's pretty crazy as a thing.
I mean, this is literally like PC gaming, right? Like your PC is more powerful, it's gonna look better, right? And that kind of thing.
This is like
now.
Imagine that 5 years later they go back to StarCraft 2 and add in a new ultra super high setting.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's
No,
a different
I'm not
thing.
diminishing that effort at all. I'm just saying, like, I like that, like, now, like, you have stronger hardware. Well, naturally, it should look and run better, right? And that kind of approach is kind of being taken here. And I thought that was interesting.
And that's, I mean, it's cool. It is cool, right? Like, but that it's not just for new games. That because of that, I mean, like, this is obviously only 11 games, but I think it's a low key, a big proposition ad for hardcore people who are the type of people who are willing to drop enough money to buy an Xbox One X, right?
The Xbox One X is getting like
that,
very like, man, like I already have one, but like it really is. They're really making the case for a lot stronger, right? Like you want one, you know?
Yeah.
Hearing all these things.
There's enough just continual positive headlines about it that you just have a general vibe of like, I feel like I'm missing out a little bit, which is what they want.
I want one too.
Yeah. I mean, it's still $500.
It's so small and it looks so nice. It would be so nice and small on my entertainment.
Yeah, because you have the original Xbox One, right?
I have the original one. The thing is
Giant.
humongous.
It's a goddamn VCR player.
You know, and it is, and I still like it, but I mean, shit, I want the One X.
Yeah.
And it's, I heard it's quieter. It's, it has a bigger hard drive, obviously. You know, there's just so many things. You know, I bought a 4K TV recently, and I want to take advantage of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a good job, Xbox. Good job.
Well done.
Good job. They've been doing some cool stuff. They like kudos to them. Like,
Yeah.
They're not just sitting. They're not content with being behind. They're really pushing for like, come back to us. We want you to be back here.
Yeah. Just give us some games. Now that's all we need.
And that's the hardest thing, right? Is that like they're a hardware company, but they're not a software company. Or,
I guess this is the little bit of a tangent, but like I do think like 2018 looks decently strong for Xbox, right? Like Sea of Thieves has come in, Crackdown probably won't be good, but it's coming.
Could be.
And it could be good. And like State of Decay, like there's varied content, and I haven't said Halo, Gears, or Forza yet, right? Which is the meme of like, that's all Microsoft does. But
Microsoft
this year
puts
their output's pretty varied,
Yeah. I think that we're now getting to see the effects of a restructured Xbox.
Yeah.
If you haven't looked up yet, I believe it was a recent, I don't know, I forget what event it was, but Phil Spencer gave about a 45-minute presentation about the restructuring of how they treat Xbox, right? Of how they view the Xbox brand, and part of that includes encouraging more people to be more open and more able to put their own ideas out there. They started that about a year ago. And if you look at a lot of these games that are coming out, like some of them are sequels, but I think that we're starting to see the fruits of that initiative for the console in terms of the games that we're getting, right? Sea of Thieves is a good game that like
it is a good start.
Yeah.
Give us some new, well thought out IPs, and I think Sea of Thieves is a good start.
Yeah, hopefully that game does well. I'm interested in it. I'm buying an Xbox.
I'm gonna support it.
But I think that's sort of the big news for this week. But we're gonna move into a part of the podcast that is now fun for me. I get to do a fun thing. I get to hand the reins over to the winner of last week's game, who knew the period from announcement to release the best of anyone in this podcast, Saphir.
That is right. It is my game. And today's game is... Well, I don't have a name of this game. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe a role that a character plays in a video game. And it's your job to tell me who this character is and which game that character is from. Which game specifically from that franchise they're from.
Okay, how do we buzz in?
I mean, you're going to first come, first serve.
Okay, so
I'm going to describe
So just scream.
Yelling it out.
Yep. I mean, I would do a score system, but my fingers hurt too much.
I'll keep score. I'll keep score.
Will's got this.
I've got 3 clues that I'm going to use to describe this role to you. And you're going to have to guess within those 3 clues.
I'm excited.
Are you gonna give us one clue and then we guess?
I'm going to give you 1 clue at a time. If you can't get it with that clue, if you can't get both the name and the game with that clue, then...
You give another clue.
Yep.
Do the points go down as you have to get more clues? Like, do you get more points if you get it in 1 clue?
I was thinking about doing that first, but again, my hand's up, so I'm just going to go for first.
Okay, we'll say if we get it first, then if we get on the first hint, then we get 3, 2, 1. Does that seem fair?
Yep.
Yes, that seems fair.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, that's fine. Right. So, this character. I've joined a crime family with my friend. We're in the business of collecting debts.
Kazuma Kiryu.
Yakuza.
That was Will.
Damn it.
Which
I said
game?
the game first. Fuck.
Yakuza 1.
No.
Yakuza
Yakuza
0.
There you go. Will got it.
I feel like I said 0 first. No.
I'll give Moose a point. So if you get the game, I'll give you 1 point.
Okay. The next game. I am no longer a cyborg and have become the grandmaster of my clan. I've made peace with a longtime enemy, and my clan has helped a group of heroes fight an army from the Netherrealm.
I don't play games.
Cyrax? From Mortal
Nope.
Kombat?
It's definitely Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat 9
Sector?
specifically.
Nope.
No,
Next
no,
clue.
no on both
I'll
answers?
give you a few seconds more. and then we'll-
Cyber Sub-Zero.
Smoke.
Will's on the right track.
Sub-Zero.
Yep.
All right.
But which game?
Mortal Kombat 10.
Yes.
Damn it.
Was that your first hint?
That was the first hint.
That was the
I
first
guess.
hint? Okay.
That's a first
Yep.
hint. Jesus. Okay.
That was a long hint.
So, the third character, I'm a longtime partner and mentor to a treasure hunter. I had to
Sully.
save him from a pirate attack. That was fucking quick. God damn it.
Uncharted 2.
What?
Uncharted 1.
2.
Uncharted 1, yeah. Last but not least, I wake up in this world that is being invaded by aliens without any memory of my past. Now I have to decide my own path and kill whoever stands in my way by any weapon necessary.
Ness.
Who?
Ness. Ness would be such a good guess. Oh, that's such a good guess.
Not quite.
Next clue.
Next clue.
Okay, this is going to be a lot easier. I am the ultimate life form.
Shadow the Hedgehog. Sonic Adventure 2.
Game.
Absolutely disgusting. What a good description for Shadow the Hedgehog.
You know, Shadow, Ness, they're basically the same character if you think about it.
Yeah.
They kind of are.
They're very close. All right,
They both use psychic abilities.
what's the point total, William?
Point total is Will 11, Moose 4, Brandon 0, Noah 0.
We did it, Brandon. We suck.
What a treat that was. I want to say though, because I did the game last week, I feel like it would be boring if I just keep doing the game. Moose, you want to do the game next week?
I'll do the game, baby.
Oh baby, we're excited for the treat of Moozamil.
I'm not. No, I'm just kidding.
As long as it's not a game about sales numbers, I think we're good.
Oh no, we've given him the reins.
You made a
By the way,
mistake, boys.
the third clue.
Look forward to next week.
By the way, the third clue for Shadow the Hedgehog was where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Where's that damn fourth chaos?
How dare you?
If we didn't get it by Ultimate Life Form, I'd be pretty disgusted with us. That's,
I'm upset that I didn't get it.
I was genuinely shocked with Sully. I thought no one would get Sully.
I felt it in my heart. I thought, who's a father figure in my life that fills the void of my actual
Sully
father?
is a great character. Sully is easily the best character. In
He
that.
totally
I mean, he's
is,
no
man.
Chloe, but whatever. Who is, really?
God damn.
No, eat a Uncharted treasure.
I mean, Uncharted's bad anyway, so...
Oh
I don't know
my god.
Shut
I've played the Uncharted games. I played Uncharted 4, and you haven't.
I've played Uncharted 1, 2, and 3.
I have played
That's all I
all
need.
four of them,
But
and I love them a lot.
You know what you have played, Moose?
What have I played?
What you've been playing this week. Talk to me about Part-Time UFO.
See, I didn't think you'd let me talk about this game. I'm very excited. Okay, so, this is a game on iOS and Android, right? Part-Time UFO.
I wonder why I haven't heard of it.
But you should have heard of it. I'm gonna tell you why. It's made by HAL Laboratory, developers of Kirby. It's a cute little game where you hold the phone vertically and you have to hold it with both hands. And there's like a little analog stick on the left side, right? Which sucks. I wish it was on 3DS, but what can you do? You're a UFO catcher. You're a literal UFO, but you have a UFO catcher, right? And you use that UFO catcher to kind of do part-time jobs, right? Like, for example, you'll be fishing, or you'll be stacking cheerleaders up on top of each other, or helping a farmer collect fruit. A lot of weird stuff. Yeah, it's weird. And so you're literally...
Have you never stacked cheerleaders on your...
Yeah, well, I
time,
have that very common part-time job. No,
American
I don't.
pastime, man.
Yeah.
I looked at it online on the internet because I've not played it yet, and it gave me heavy Rhythm Heaven vibes, heavy WarioWare vibes, which are two extreme compliments.
I definitely see that. It's real cute game. And like the tasks you're doing are real bizarre, right? Like stacking cheerleaders, yeah. But it's fun. I like it. It would have definitely benefited from being on a console with an actual like analog stick, but instead of like, but the virtual stick works well enough. Like they made it work well enough. It looks exactly like a 3DS circle pad, funnily enough, which is why I keep saying it should be on 3DS. But yeah, I'm a fan of like HAL's weird smaller games like Box Boy, you know, like when they venture out from just Kirby, or when they do weird things with Kirby, you know. So it's fun to see games like this. It's only $4, so you know, like it's not that.
And I looked, there was no microtransactions or anything.
No
right?
microtransactions, nothing
Just
like that.
core
No.
$4 and you're done.
Yeah. Yep. You pay $4 and you're good. So I mean, honestly, I would recommend it at $4. It's pretty short. Like I already beat it. but it's fun. There's a lot of fucking, what's it called? Little metal missions, extra missions you could do, like, you know, like stack them in a certain way or collect this like individual kind of fish or whatever, you know. Fun little secret goals for you to kind of go back to the levels, you know. But
so it adds replayability, basically.
Yes, it's fun. I like it.
Really fast, if I may. I would like to talk about Yakuza 6, because I guess technically this is a game preview because the game's not out, but I'm playing the full game.
We're actual
So who
journalists
knew
now.
you're getting coverage that quickly? What experts we are. Yakuza 6, I don't want to, no story spoilers, because obviously people want to play that story for what it is, but I want to talk about a couple of changes that are big, and you can see them on the stream, and you can see me reacting in a big way. There is no loading screens now between going indoors and outdoors and going into fights. There's no like, because with the previous games, when you were like going to any shop, it would take like a little bit, right? And when you would get into a fight, it wouldn't load, but there would be this part where like Kiryu would like sort of like jump in place and get ready to fight, and the guys would be like, "Come at me!" And then you would like, so it'd be like 5 seconds before you could get into a fight.
The transition, yeah.
Yeah, in Yakuza 6, you run up to a guy and you can immediately start dropping a drop kick on him to start that fight. You can get the drop on him if they don't know. And you can go into every store, you can go up and down. Like, and the thing that I love is that there are buildings, you can't go into every single building, but you can go into most of them. And every single room of every building is fully modeled, right? There's no doors that are just locked off. Even if it's just sort of an empty office space, there's something there and there's people in it, which is nice.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and what it allows for is it just allows it lets time pass much faster in that game because you're not having to stop and start so much, and that's a big benefit. Also, you can play that entire game in first person while you're walking around. In fights, you can't, but just press R on the stick and you can look around in first person. And with now that more exploration, you can now see how they've like modeled every single shelf in every single store, and you can see like the products that they're selling, and it's cool and neat for a person who has Yakuza always goes back oftentimes to Kamurocho, which is the sort of city the game is set in, and it's fun to get to look at that city in more detail than you have in the last 5 games, right? That's the benefit of what the PS4 allows you to do. There's a clear thing that they were not able to do before that they are now able to do, and that is neat. But like I said, no story spoilers. Look, but if you are looking forward to that game, don't worry, it is good.
It is cool. And there was even one part I just want to point out that I thought was kind of cool, because I was with Will in the stream while he was playing it, and yes, he was very excited when he found all this out that he just explained. But one thing that I thought was funny too, it was a nice little touch, was he was fighting outside a convenience store against some thugs, and he accidentally broke the window, and I'm jokingly like, "Oh man, that shopkeeper is gonna be pissed at you. You just broke his window," and then he goes in there to buy something, and the shopkeeper's like, "No,
what are you doing?
You broke
my
my
get out of here! I'm gonna call the cops." It's super good. And later, I unlocked a move where you can drag someone into that convenience store, because it used to be that you couldn't go into any stores while you were fighting. You can drag them into the convenience store and then press the like special move button, and Kiryu throws the bad guy over the counter, headfirst into the microwave. And then tells the guy, "Heat it up," and the guy turns on the microwave with the guy's head in there, and the guy just gets like electrocuted a bunch and like dies, and you're like, this is good and dumb. This is really good.
Shit! I'm glad that this still is brutal as ever.
I'm so glad I'm starting to play all the Yakuza games now.
Yeah.
Didn't the previous game have you punch a whole bunch of nails into a guy's mouth and just slam it shut or something?
Oh yeah, the heat actions in these games are insane. There's in the remake of Yakuza 1, you can have like people that you've helped in side quests come help you, and one of them is a dominatrix, and she throws you her whip, and you use it and you beat the guy with the whip, and you like spank him, and then you kick it over to her and she stomps on his balls, and you're like, this is insane. What is happening? This game is great. That's the thing that's great about Yakuza, is that like the story itself is a very serious crime drama. Like the characters' emotions are serious, their backstories are serious, but the minute you go into gameplay, the minute you go into side missions, the game is willing to be insane and weird and crazy. And that mix, I don't know how they do it, but it makes for this type of charm that is very hard to replicate in any other video game.
Yeah, no, this homework is for you, but I want you to look up Yakuza and karaoke.
Yes.
Judgment.
Yes. It's a treat, and there's also very good ones in Yakuza 6 as well. So look forward to those. I did one of them on stream, and it was very good. But I gotta gush about my game for a little bit, and thank you for allowing me to do that, everyone. But we get to gush about another game. I get the feeling, because it's time for the list.
The list.
And this week, it's time for Moozamil to step up to the plate. So Moose, tell us what you are looking at for the list.
So it is Switchmas after all.
Switchmas. Yeah.
Well, what better way to celebrate than its premiere launch game, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about 1-2-Switch. Oh, well.
Yeah.
That's
the real premiere console seller.
The premiere launch game, Fast RMX.
Excuse me, Super Bomberman R would like to have.
Yeah.
Excuse you, Funky Barn would like to have a conversation.
Hold on, that's a Wii U game.
Snipper clips? Where's that?
All right.
So we've run that joke into the ground.
We did. Good job, everyone.
So Breath of the Wild came out when the Switch came out. And honestly, like, I don't know how to describe this other than it's the best game I've ever played. Like, that's it. Like, it is. Okay. I've never played a video game that I think is better than this. Like, straight up.
It definitely left a big impression and was impressive in general when it came out. It was just like, whoa.
I could gush about this game for an hour, but I figured, since it is the 1-year anniversary, that the minute the Breath of the Wild was available for the list, it was going to be added. Especially with Moose picking. So I thought about, like, what are the things that I like about Breath of the Wild so much, right? Because it was my game of the year last year. It's one of my favorite games I've ever played. What is, like, the stuff that it does better than any other game, right? And I want to first and foremost talk about, like, they refer to their open world design as an open air design, right? And that, of course, is a very Nintendo thing where they make up their own term for sort of what is an existing genre. Because they view it as their own take on it. But I think that they're not wrong. I think that the thing that the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild does is that, and I think the only game that sort of compares to it is Shadow of the Colossus, is the understanding of open space and of space where there's sort of not a lot to do. Because there are parts of Breath of the Wild where there isn't like any huge event happening, right? That there's not always enemies coming to attack you. It's not like there's always a constant threat or danger. Sometimes you're just sort of exploring, right? But I think it is that it's the same. And I think it's the same thing that happens in real life when you like go on a hike, right? The reason that going to like hiking to a waterfall matters, that waterfall matters more if it's a 2-mile hike versus if it's a 5-minute walk, right? Because part of it is the anticipation and sort of the journey to a thing, the build up, right? There's a pace to it. And I think that a lot of times with video game developers seem very scared that you're going to get bored, right? They're like, let's have the gameplay loop be tight, constant. You're shooting a guy, then you're picking up their gun, then you're shooting another guy with that gun, and you're going balls out, baby. But like,
sounds like super hot.
Like super hot. But like super hot's like super contained, right? But I mean, like, you know, like the bullet storms of the world are also sort of like that too, right? Like have numbers constantly be throwing at your face. But what Zelda does is that it says like there are moments where you can. It's the jazz thing, right? Like in jazz, they say it's the notes you play as much as the notes you don't, and vice versa. The notes that you don't play are as important as the notes that you do. And so I think that Zelda gets that, right? I think that Zelda gets that it's okay to be quiet and to have quiet exist because it makes the world feel bigger, right? It makes it feel like you're on an adventure, which games haven't elicited for me from a long time, I think. And that's why I'm so into that game.
I want to add as well, like, they don't, like, it's quiet, but they don't make it boring. Like, it's quiet, but there's always something interesting to look for.
There's always something to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you find a little Korok seed or even just a dumb treasure chest, you know, there's something there. But also what specifically resonated in this game with me, right? If you've ever seen me play a game, let me tell you, I am terrible at navigation, at just anything, right? Like I'm awful at that kind of stuff, right? So it makes me think, like, why would I like an open world game? Why would I like a game that's all about exploration? But that's the thing, right? Like this is the game I love getting lost in, right? I just, and not only that, it's so weird. Like obviously there's grass there's grassy plains everywhere in this game, right? But I think like each part of the land just has like this distinct look to it where I vividly remember like, oh, like you show me a screenshot of like in Akala, right? I will know where it is, you know. Every place just has these small, like not necessarily like big, like this is this place, you know.
There's no giant landmark, like giant statue of a goddess,
Yeah.
or this distinct mountain shape or whatever. Yeah.
But just these small features are enough for me to remember, like, you know, this is where this was. And for someone like me who's awful at that, like at recognizing any sort of landmarks or anything, like I think that's pretty remarkable, you know?
Yeah. Another thing I want to say really fast is that I said this to, I think, to Moose when the game first came out. Zelda, it's a systems-based approach to open world, right? And they said that, they built an elemental system. They give every object traits, right? They make a sword and they say the sword is metallic. The sword is, therefore it can conduct electricity. It is heavy, so it sinks this far in the water. It does X, Y, Z. And because of that, because they do not hard code traits into objects in the world, but rather they just they apply traits and then allow them to interact. Oftentimes you will think, can I try this? And then you can, right? There's very rarely a time where the game says, sorry, we didn't plan for this, because the game's design is open enough that it allows for player experimentation.
I feel like that leads me into one of my favorite things about this game. And it was the combat and the way you could, you know, go into a situation, into a fight, and just do it in hundreds of different ways. You could approach a single fight in, I'm not even kidding when I say at least hundreds of different ways. Based on, you know, what items you brought into the fight, what the surroundings were at the time, what the weather was. It was just insane. Every fight was different. And there was just so many different ways to utilize the environment, your weapons, your powers, the way the enemies behave, all of it. It was insane. You would just constantly find yourself figuring out new ways to fight enemies.
Yeah.
Whether it was like a simple thing like, you know, knocking over a boulder and, you know, rolling it down into a section of enemies, or lighting their camp on fire and watching them all panic, or, you know, other enemies randomly roaming in and them fighting each other. It was just the best.
Yeah, and as you said, it's like you can have enemies fight each other, or you can just lure another enemy in and just watch them wreck shit if needs be.
Yeah, wake up one of those the robot things. I forgot what they called them.
The Guardian.
The Guardians.
The Guardians.
And they wake up and then they fight the other enemies with the laser beams.
Like, it's infinite. Like the gifs alone that you see on the internet and Twitter. Like, remember the gif where it's like some guy just shot an arrow like hundreds of miles away at a Guardian, and then he just parried that laser from fucking miles away.
Oh yeah.
The Guardian shot at him. That was amazing. And then there was another gif where it's like a Stone Talus was fighting a Guardian. Like this dude was managing to get those two mini bosses against each other. Like there's so much to do, and there's so much variety in there. Like the way we explain freedom is very understated in this game.
Yeah, because you can literally, and that kind of extends to how you explore too, right? Like there's no set path that you can really interact with anything and everything, right?
We haven't mentioned the climbing yet, right?
Yeah, the climbing, the key feature of this game, right? I play other open world games. I played Horizon afterwards, and I'm like, man, like I wish I could climb. You know, like, it's changed my way of thinking of how I interact with the environment, because it just really opens up so many possibilities. Because you're not forced to just
like you can do
go in this single line. I feel like climbing this mountain. And I see like just this little part where I can rest, where it gives me just enough space where I feel like, holy shit, I'm so smart. You know, there's so many of those moments.
And I think that it actually, in terms of an open world design, like people say, you know, if you know, some people have issues with Breath of the Wild, and we can get to those, right? But
yeah.
I think that just the climbing allows you to maximize so much space of an open world design that other games have not had access to by not having that type of climbing, right? Like a mountain in Skyrim, right? For example, the actual traversable terrain of that mountain is relatively small most of the time. There's a mountain path that's probably wide, like, like it's wide, but it's where the only way to get up there without having to do dumb weird glitches and jumping backwards up a mountain, right? Whereas with Breath of the Wild, like, that means that because you can climb any part of the mountain, they could put anything in any nook and cranny along the way, right? When they build that mountain, they get more efficient space use out of it, because that means that entire mountain is then usable to design for the characters to explore for your players to explore the world, right? And I think that's a low-key thing that I think I wish would be incorporated into other open world games.
And you said like how they utilize the space of literally everything, right? And that even the way they use that they use it in the craziest ways, right? Like normally you see a canyon, you can't cross that, right? It's just a fucking canyon, or you cross it with a bridge or whatever, right? If you fall in that canyon, you die, right? You go into that canyon, there's something down there,
Yeah.
which broke my brain because I'm so used to
cross.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like it just was insane to me that they built an entire thing at the bottom of that canyon where normally it would just be unreachable or just a dead zone or whatever. It's
neat. It's cool.
I want to say something as well that I
yeah.
really like. The characters. All the characters in this game are fantastic. Like, I love the Garuda tribe. I love the Great Fairy as well. She's absolutely fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Pio is great.
Prince Sidon.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the story itself, which is also very good.
Yeah.
See, now this is the thing that people would have issue with, and I think that the story does have it. There's not a big defining moment, and I think that's by the design of the game, right? The design is that you can go
the story
fight
itself,
Ganon.
like the backstory of like what happened and all the events that happened in the past was really interesting with all like the heroes, the champions, and all that was really cool. But the ending wasn't so great.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that the final crescendo, it's hard to feel like, because you could potentially beat it at any time if you do all of the quests, if you do all the shrines and you get super big and beefy, the final boss is kind of a joke because of the design that he could also be beaten 50 hours ago, right? And so, I mean, that's a potential issue, but I think that it is simply, and the other big issue I would say that people have, and I think we should address, is the dungeons, right? The dungeons are not as unique or as in depth as previous Zelda games, right?
Yeah, so, in a certain aspect, but they do revolve around like the mechanics the new mechanic they introduced of like being able to turn the whole stage upside down.
That stuff is really neat, and I actually don't mind the dungeons a whole lot, but I can see how like there is the desire a little bit that just like things like fighting Phantom Ganon, right? Like in the Forest Temple and in the whole Forest Temple from Ocarina of Time, for example, right? Like, there's nothing that really is ever as atmospheric as that because the look of all the divine beasts are so similar.
I agree, and I think that's my one and only gripe with the game.
Yeah.
It is I needed more dungeons, and I know there's shrines, right? And if you combine all the shrines together, there's more than enough dungeons. But all the shrines are their own
They're self-contained.
Self-contained one puzzle. You get in, you do it.
Yeah.
You're done.
See, I really enjoyed that part that they made the shrines like just as small as they are. It's like they're enough to keep your attention to make them interesting, and they don't drag out long to make you go, "Oh, okay, I really want this done to be over with."
Yeah.
But I do like for future games and titles, if they follow this formula, which I hope they do. I'd like them to like improve like mostly the boss fights.
Yeah,
Sure,
because
yeah.
like
Yeah,
they got the dungeon,
yeah.
they got the puzzle formula right. They can improve a little bit on the dungeons themselves, like make traditional Zelda dungeons. But I feel like the boss fights weren't as interesting as they could have made them. Mm-hmm. Like they were pretty forgettable.
I guess my thing with the dungeons was that they weren't unique from each other, right? Like the four dungeons, like I kind of grouped them all together. I group all the bosses together because they're all so samey, Like
They have a very same like aesthetic. Like they're all inside this big mechanical.
And they're
Yeah.
all these like kind of swirly looking like evil goo monsters that you fight. Like there's
whereas like in Ocarina of Time, right? You remember the Forest Temple, you remember the Spirit Temple, etc., right? Like it's like these are unique places
look
that
very
they
different.
stick in your mind. Whereas all the 4 divine beasts just kind of they mesh together, you know. Like I can't tell you which one's
Which you
which.
still have with Breath of the Wild, like with the exploration bit, because you still have like the areas, like you have the volcano, you have the desert. You have
Sure.
that.
Getting to the
But,
dungeon
yeah.
itself, you remember that. But once
Yeah, you
get
remember
into
getting
it-
there, but not the actual dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So-
Because there's like 120 different dungeons, though.
well, I mean, that's I mean I don't know if I would count each shrine as a dungeon, right? I think that the shrines were actually a happy coincidence with the Switch, right? And that like I think that having them be these like 3 to 4 minute things makes a shrine much more doable when you're like playing on like on the
Oh, it
bus.
makes Breath of the Wild to be an amazing handheld experience, right? Like,
I feel still like the shrines themselves are very appropriate for the game.
Yeah.
Like it fits well with.
Yeah.
the
I mean,
theme of the
these
game, and-
these are flaws, but I think that they are clear flaws that exist as a concession for the things that make the game incredible, right? It's not like they're flaws that just like, why didn't they make a
They're
dungeon? It's like,
negligible.
clearly they made the dungeon this way because you have to have all the tools available to you at the start to have the design be as open-ended as it is, you know?
and like at some point you gotta cut it off, right? Like they
They spent 7 years on this game, right? Like,
they spent so long on this game and they packed it in with so much that it's like there had to be some cuts here and there, right? Like it's the nature of the beast. But
And this is their first step for like a proper open world game, so like they did a pretty fucking good job.
yeah, it's very impressive.
But
right?
and like that's it. Like none of those flaws, it really made really were detrimental to my experience at all, right? Like I think about them after when I have to think about this game objectively, right? But when I'm playing that game, I don't think of any of that, you know?
in the moment of, yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of goes like, it would have been better, but it didn't harm the game in any way.
I did a little bit. Not to the point where it really changed any opinion overall that I had.
One final thing I want to touch on, because I think that that's important when discussing games, that they don't exist in a void, right? That The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is the latest entry in what is one of the most storied series in all of video games, right? And it is very different from most of the designs that we've seen, right? It's closest in design kind of to Zelda 1, but like even then it's different. But I like that in universe there's like a weird meta text to it of a Hyrule that has been destroyed and then is rebuilding, right? And like how that sort of is the series in that moment. When you first walk out of the chamber where Link was asleep and you just see Hyrule Castle, but then everything else is just nature. And then you turn your camera to the right and you see the Temple of Time, and it's a husk of what it once was, right? It's part of it's missing, and you go there and you hear notes that are so distant you can barely tell that they're the music from the Temple of Time. But within that Temple of Time, it's been filled in by the wild, right? It's been filled in by that open air. It's this kind of really, I don't know if it was intentional, but like this beautiful representation of like a series that kept using the iconography over and over, finally look towards what makes a Zelda that isn't just Zelda, Ganon, Link, right? Like the more thematic things that drive the joy of playing a Zelda game, like exploration, like puzzle solving, right? That is the stuff that Breath of the Wild puts at the forefront, and it prioritizes. It proves that a Zelda game is not a guy in a green tunic. It's not a guy in a green tunic wearing a Master Sword. It is a mentality of game design that is about exploration and is about experiencing a sense of adventure that Shigeru Miyamoto back when he was a kid had when he would explore his woods back behind his house, you know? And that's what,
Yeah.
and I felt it since for the first time since I first played Wind Waker as a kid, again with Breath of the Wild.
Very well said.
But, Moose, it's time to come to the ranking.
Oh no, this is gonna be.
so I think
Under Sonic 06. No,
yeah.
Bottom of the list.
Bottom of the list, yeah. No, but I think I speak for everyone when I say it should be number one. But if there's
All
any
in favor, say aye.
objections-
Aye.
Aye.
We did it.
Boom. That's it. No.
Red Dead Redemption had a powerful 1 week stay at the top.
Assert.
Like, sorry, Red Dead. Like, it was Switchmas. It was the 1 year. Breath of the Wild was finally eligible this week. I had to do it this week.
Yeah, it is rough.
I cannot.
Sorry, go ahead, Saf.
I can't wait for the next episode when we discuss where in the timeline this game comes in.
Oh, that's gonna be the only that's gonna be the podcast for the next 100 episodes.
Yeah.
Last week when we were discussing Red Dead, and Noah said it's my favorite open world game besides Breath of the Wild, and then my brain, a calendar came up, and I realized that this would be coming up the week after. I was like, oh no, poor Red Dead, bud. But know that we still love you, Red Dead. But number one on the list, powerful number one, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, the Nintendo Switch version. Get out of here, Wii U. You're a piece of garbage. Throw it in the trash.
Wait, no, it's Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Tokyo Mirage Sessions. You'll get it. It'll get a stay. But number one, so the list right now: number one, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild; number two, Red Dead Redemption; number three, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time; number four, Phoenix Wright: Ace Attorney; and number five, Donkey Kong Country 2: Diddy's Conquest.
Donkey Kong?
That's a powerful top five.
Drunky Kong.
Drunky Kong. It's fine. But with that, I don't think there's a better way to potentially end this podcast besides putting that one of my favorite games at number one. But Moose, I want you to talk to me about social media platforms.
I would love to. So you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on SoundCloud. You can find us anywhere you would get a podcast, except for Spotify and Google Play. Please rate us 5 stars on iTunes because it helps with visibility. Comment, like, all that jazz. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JumpUpSupercast. And we are on Twitch, twitch.tv/JumpUpSupercast. We stream pretty often. I'm not gonna say every day, but pretty close to that.
Yeah, we try to, and we'll tweet about it hopefully beforehand on our Twitter.
So you can always find when we're streaming on twitter.com/JumpUpSupercast.
I was looking at the Jump Up Supercast Twitch, the dashboard for the stuff. We've done everything to get an affiliate status besides 50 followers. We're at like 8 or 9 right now. So if you
followers
are interested, follow so you can get the updates when we're going live, so you don't just have to rely on Twitter, because Twitter can be bad sometimes, and help us get there, because boy oh boy, I enjoy streaming more than I thought I would, and I think other people do as well.
Same, man. I think it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think me and Will are in it for the long haul. So I think a lot of times either me or Will will be streaming. And also Saf, once he's done with his gaming related injury, he'll probably
thoughts and prayers out for Saf. He's dying. His hand has become calcified. He can no longer close his hand.
Not subscribe. What is it? Follow. One follow on Twitch equals one
finger that Saf can
one
use.
recovery for Saf.
Yes. One prayer.
Good.
One thought and one prayer.
And we try to do group streams at least once a week. But otherwise, Brandon, Will, maybe Saf, they do their individual stuff also. But we try to do our group streams pretty decently often too.
Yeah, at least once a week. But once again, that is the Jump Up Supercast. We are the Jump Up Supercast. We want to thank you all for listening. And remember, just try to be good to each other.
Oh, shit.
Merry Switchmas.
That's good advice. And Merry Switchmas.
Switchmas.